Hey patrons, thank you so much for all of the continued support. It's very much appreciated. And I am done. Okay, so I just finished up reading Of Darkness and Light by Ryan Cahill. This is the second book in the Bound and the Broken series. And I want to give you my unedited thoughts upon finishing this book, which was just right now. So, why are you watching this? Go buy this book. Go get the series. This is incredible. This is simply incredible. Everybody that told me to go read this was right. I can't tell you how often people hype up a series, and I find myself underwhelmed, but they didn't hype it up enough. And that's such a great feeling. This book's downright incredible. This series is turning into just the epic fantasy story that I feel like we don't get enough of anymore. In that kind of Wheel of Time epic fashion, and the Stormlight epic fashion. And it's hard to write those books. They have to be huge. You have to put a ton of dedication into it. You have to plan. You can't just randomly write these things and just let inspiration take you. And this has been executed to perfection. I'm just blown away by how good this was. I'm blown away by how good this ending was. I'm still processing what I just read. I should have seen it coming. There's a big thing that happens that I won't even tell you when it happens, but I should have seen it coming. I've read enough fantasy stories by now to know the setup that was being done along the way, and I love it when that happens. I just love it when that happens, and I suspect it's going to happen to you as well when you read this, if you haven't read it yet. But go buy this. Why are you still watching this? You shouldn't. Just go. I'm not going to ruin anything, though, so if you want to stick around, that's great, too. Yeah, I've gotten a lot of people that have told me to read this, and it feels like it's kind of a booktube kind of darling that hasn't really gotten the attention of those major series. And oftentimes when I see these things happen, I just get really skeptical, and I've been burned too many times. So I keep putting it off, and I keep hearing people talk about it, people that I trust. And I dove in on the first book, and I kind of felt like I was right when I read the first one. I read the first one, and I went, yeah, I give it a 4 out of 5 stars, which is good. But I read it, and I went, yeah, this is tropey. It's not doing anything new, nothing original. It's good. But it's not that epic story that I wanted. And the problems I had with it was that it was just not its own thing. It felt like a mix of a lot of other books. It just didn't become itself. And it didn't, I know this is really picky, but to be this epic fantasy story, it didn't have enough POV characters. It really followed this one group around, and really just followed this one person around nonstop. There was a little bit of other people kind of involved and weaved in there, but I was like, look, I want it to be bigger. I want it to be grander. I want to go to distant locations on this map. I want to explore this world, and I just want the POVs to expand broadly. And what I got was everything that I wanted, and then a lot more. I mean, we're like halfway through this book, and we're still getting new characters brought up that are just, I just love that so much. I love when the author does that. Maybe some people just hate it. Steven Erikson did it all the time in Malazan. George R. R. Martin did it all the time in A Song of Ice and Fire. All of a sudden you're several books in, and characters that you love are gone, and all of a sudden the Martells get brought up, and you're like, okay, I guess I love this character now, and then, we know what happens with him. But I love when stories have the guts to do this, and this book just did it routinely. I mean, some of my favorite characters in the series now were characters that were brought up in this book. 2 of them, and maybe they were brought up earlier, but this book is just, I know I'm not really talking about the plot at all, but I feel like I'm just gushing right now about how excited I am about this series. And everyone told me that this would happen. When I reviewed the first book and the faults that I had, and I gave it a 4, everyone said, Matt, you're in for a treat. And I was, and they not only did they say you're in for a treat, they said book 2 is far superior to book 1, and book 3 is far superior to book 2. I don't understand how that's possible, but I'm all in. It instantly shot up to one of the top 2 or 3 books that I'm most excited to read going forward. I think maybe the only book that I'm possibly more excited to read than that is The Speaking Bones. I think that's what it's called, by Ken Liu, the final book in Dandelion Dynasty. But this one, the next one's right up there. I don't even know what it's called. And God, I'm so excited right now. I'm just so excited. I love so much what the author was able to do here because, first of all, he did something that I wish more epic fantasy authors would do, where he gave a recap of the first story and the novella that became very important. I didn't realize how important it was as I read this book, but now looking back, the novella is so much better than I gave it credit for. I want to read it again. But he recapped both of those in a good amount of detail. And by putting it in the beginning of the book and kind of going over all the names of the characters before, especially on Kindle, it's so nice to read a book like this on Kindle, because when a character would get brought up that I just don't remember anymore, I just search their name on Kindle, and the first time that their name is brought up when you hit enter on the search is the relevant moment where they tell you where they got brought up in the previous story. That's awesome. I probably searched for 30 or 40 different names as I'm reading through this book. And the fact that it's so easy to just pull it up and find out who they're talking about and just get sucked in, it was perfect. It gave me that Wheel of Time feeling again that I've been looking for. I love the Wheel of Time. It's one of my favorite series that I've ever read. It's not, I don't think, like top 5, but it's awesome. And when I think of like epic fantasy stories, it's certainly in the top 5. But this book did everything that the Wheel of Time attempted to do and did it better. And, I feel like that's a bold statement. I'm probably having a lot of people watching this that are like, yeah, Matt, you're being a little over the top. But I do love Wheel of Time. I'm not saying that as a hater. I'm just telling you how good this book is. It's incredible. I keep showing you this like there's something here. It's just a Kindle cover. God, this is so good. I can't really talk about the plot because the plot, all you need to know is that it took the first book and just blew things up. Things got bigger, they got grander, we got characters going in distant locations, we got new characters, we got the plot blowing up, we had previous things that I thought was minor that turned into huge things. We have the characters becoming ultra powerful, but not too powerful. Bigger and badder enemies, huge battle sequences that I'll never forget. These epic locations, these enormous journeys that we got to go on, epic beasts, the most evil of bad characters. We got friendships that became stronger, friendships that became more distant, these relationships that became really impactful. Just all of these wonderful things that you would ever want from a fantasy story exist to perfection here. And not only that, it feels like the author got a lot better. In the first book, it did feel tropey. It did feel like the writing felt good, not great. But there were many times in this story where I read a quote and I went, wow, that is deep. That is really well stated. And not just like the same kind of things that you hear in every book, that are cool to read, but we've heard them a million times. Like I can't tell you how many times I've read, and I'm pretty sure it probably exists here too. But like, you can't be brave unless you're scared, and bravery is overcoming that. These were like really unique things where I'm just kind of sit back and go like, that's really impactful. And it just felt like the author has somehow had an enormous quality improvement. It almost feels like a different author in a really positive way. And I hate to be that guy that says you got to power through the first book to get to the second book. I hate it when people tell me that. I cringe when I hear people tell that to other people. But I'm going to be that guy where, I do think that if you hated the first book, you're going to hate this one too, because it's clearly not for you. But if you at least liked the first one, and you're like me, where you liked it, didn't love it, you're in for a banging treat. I mean, it's just going to be, you're going to have one of the best times that you're ever going to have. And this book's huge, which is awesome. I love long books when I'm in love with them. And I'm just looking at the third book. The third book is going to end up being one of the longer books that I've ever read in my life. That's awesome. I want so badly to continue on with this story. The characters are amazing in this story. I love them to bits. I hate some of them to bits. And some of them are extremely complicated, and I don't really know what to feel. Even the main character at times, I feel like I don't know what to feel, even though it's got that classic protagonist feel to this main character, and there very much is a main character. But we got a much deeper dive on these other characters that is so well needed in a story like this. I think that the magic that's being used is really fun. It's definitely softer magic system. It's not deeply explained, but there's a lot of variation to it. I love dragons in my stories. There's a very prominent dragon in this one, and more dragons that are getting introduced, which is really cool. The magic in general is really, really fun. I love that this book didn't try to tidy up everything and just tie off all the loose ends. There was several major things involving a family that at the very beginning of the story it gets kind of split off, and I'm constantly expecting them to be able to come back together. Friends that I expect to come back together. And while some things did get resolved, major things were left unresolved. And it makes me that much hungrier to get to the next book. There were things that, it didn't leave anything on a cliffhanger. I hate cliffhangers, but it did have major reveals towards the end of this book that made me that much more interested to keep going. Everything about this is wonderful. Every single thing about this book is wonderful, from the moment that I started this book to the moment that I finished it, and every single step of the many, 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 many hundreds of pages along the way. This is just a magical experience. So who do I recommend this book to? Everybody. If you like any sort of epic fantasy, if you like Wheel of Time, if you like A Song of Ice and Fire, I think if you like something like Stormlight, if you like older fantasy stories, this certainly has an older feel to it with a lot of newer twists to it. If you like good books, I hate to be that cut and dry, but if you like good books, then this series is for you. Don't be shy about picking this up. You got to do it, and you can thank me later, or you can just thank me right now, because I'm that confident that if any of the things that I just said are an appeal to you, that you're going to be falling in love with this book too. This is certainly going to go down as one of the best books that I've ever read, certainly one of the best books that I've read this year, but honestly, all time. This has to be a top 10 or very close to it, and I know you're like, oh, it's not even a top 10 book. I think it is, but I've read hundreds and hundreds of books. To find something that is so clearly towards the top of that list, it just puts a smile on my face. I'm so happy and excited, and I'm very thankful to the people that insisted that I pick up this series, because you were right. I was wrong. So I'm going to end it there. Thank you so much for watching this. Go read this book. You deserve it. You deserve to have a good time. So again, thank you, and happy reading to you. Thanks again to all of my patrons, with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier and Librarian tier patrons: Anna G, Brian, CJ, Darren, Gregory, Jonathan, My Book is Lit, Miranda's Bookshelf, Nathan T, Nev's Book Channel, Ron Reich, Russell, Ryan L, Sydney Baker, Tahir, Anna, Andra, Angelo, Ben, Blair, Brock, Evan, Harry B, Jamie, Joe, Maria, Michael Sugarman, Sky, TW57, Wacky, and Zion.